Hello, welcome back to the Comic Book Matters podcast. I'm your host Jesse, and with me today is the writing duo and the artist behind Renegade Rule, a new original graphic novel coming out of Dark Horse. It's Ben Kahn, Rachel Silverstein, and Sam Beck. Hey, every guys.
Hey Jesse,
Hello.
thank you for having us.
First off, how is everybody today? I know Sam says she just got her internet back, so it's like I'm glad that everybody can make it.
Oh, I have had a very nice chill day. I have a podcast after this where we're discussing a horror movie. I'm doing another episode of Progressively Horrified, the horror podcast I do with Jeremy Whitley and Emily Martin. So a nice full day of watching fun horror.
I still have bar brain. I took the bar exam last week.
Ooh, wow.
So my brain is just mush even a week later.
It's just all these different random penal codes just sticking out. It's like, okay, get in there. You need to know this.
Yeah.
And Sam, how are you now that you have internet back?
I'm great. The lack of it at least gave me the chance to really focus on coloring a different comic I'm working on, but trying to get through the last stretch of that. So a curse and the blessing of not having the internet for like the past week.
Ben's been on before. If anybody wants to go back and listen to that old episode,
Yes.
we've talked about Ben's kind of history with comics, but I want to dive into Rachel and Sam's because they're brand new to me. And with this book, their whole work's brand new to me. I've kind of had Ben's sense of humor by reading his other works before, and it's really interesting to read their sense of writing with yours, Rachel, because you can tell where you guys kind of meld together.
Oh yeah, it's been really fun working with Ben. It's nice seeing like our two writing styles come together, and I like to think that they're similar in a way where, I mean, Ben is just hilarious, and
Yeah. Well, this was such a pure collaborative effort. Like every page and panel was written, me and Rachel together, either in the same room or FaceTiming. So there was no trading off. Like every single word in this was something we were coming up with and approving together.
And then with Sam, how did you get the pages as they finished them, or did you get it all when it was fully completed?
I got the script for the first chapter like a while before we started working on the entire book, so I got to see that first. Like I fell in love with it. Ben and Rachel kind of just reached out to me like a cold email just with the script, and I'm like, this is hilarious, and like I definitely want to be part of this. Then once we were signed on with Dark Horse, I got the rest of the script, and like it continued to be great.
Really, I think so much of it was me and Rachel trying to come up with lines to just make each other laugh. I mean, most of the dialogue feels like it originated with one of us going, I'm not saying we should do this, but wouldn't it be funny if this character said blah, blah, blah? And then they're going like, oh my God, no, that's great. That's going in the book. Yeah, that's happening. And then that's what we would then keep riffing off of. So
there's little characters in the book that they don't exactly say this, but they act like, I don't think we should do this, but maybe we should do this. And like, it's very much that type of story. And before we get too deep in everything, I just kind of want to talk about what the book is. So whoever wants to pitch it, why don't you pitch the listeners what Renegade Rule is?
Rachel, do you want to take a crack at it, or should I give it the old elevator pitch?
I feel like you have a really good elevator pitch.
All right. Renegade Rule is four dysfunctional queer friends who have competed their way to the national tournament of the hottest VR competitive shooter game in town. And now they have to get through a whole bunch of competition, infighting, and romantic distraction to become champions of Renegade Rule.
And when you hear that elevator pitch, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be a great NBC sitcom. But it turns out to be a really fun, like just it's weird to say, but like a fun, realistic comic, even though the game doesn't exist. Like everybody feels really natural in this, and Sam's art makes all the characters like really fun and vibrant looking, and the way they act and everything is just a lot of fun. You get a lot of video game comics that kind of are very stiff and don't move very well for some reason, but this comic is very in your face and action packed, even though it's full of jokes too.
When we were thinking about the characters, it wasn't just in terms of like character classes like the sniper and the healer. It was also thing like we were also really going back to, all the afternoon spent playing shooters with friends and games and just thinking about the various kinds of players you usually get. So the pissed off healer who's sick of everyone's bullshit.
Yeah.
The person who's completely distracted and just fucking around. The one person taking it way more seriously than everyone else. So we really wanted the whole thing to just feel like you were with a group of people you've known a lot longer than just a comic you've just introduced to.
Yeah.
And just, hopefully seeing them play just harkens back to all the time that readers can relate to those kinds of experiences on their own playing video games with friends.
Yeah. And for you, Rachel, how did you kind of come across like kind of working with Ben, but also like the ideas that are in the book?
So Ben and I actually met a couple of years ago back at what was it? It was a Comic-Con in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, it was like more of a vinyl toy fest than anything else, I think.
Yeah. But
so
I always love the story of how we met. Ben literally, as I was walking by, said, "Hey, you want to check out my comic?" And I said, "Sure." And it was Heavenly Blues. I bought the first 2 issues and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. We need to be friends." And so we started talking on Twitter, and we did become friends. And that just kind of led us into working on a story together. And I've always been passionate about writing and comic writing. And Ben was really sweet and said, "Hey, we can make something cool together. Let's do it." And Renegade Rule came out of 2 friends who are into video games and wanting to write a book about friends who are into video games.
And I think that's what makes it so authentic and fun compared to so many books like this out there right now. It's just because you guys enjoy each other, but also enjoy what the book is about the most.
I think a lot of shows or anime or books about or comics about video games always try to make the stakes more than what they are. There's usually like, oh, we're trapped inside the video game.
Yeah.
Or is it like the fate, if I die in the game world, we die for real, which is a trope we directly make fun of in this book. So we kind of went into it knowing that like, this is going, like we are going to keep the stakes being a video game. Like
yeah.
There's the heightened element in that this is a serious professional, serious competition that they are not taking very seriously, that they are, professionals with competitive stakes. But ultimately, this is a video game with all the life or death stakes of you playing Doom on your computer at home.
Yeah. And it helps give it not really like lower stakes, but stakes that don't feel crazy serious and stress you out the whole time. Like win or lose, you're having a good time while you're following the crew.
And it's something where characters can then, as like kind of foils against each other, part of it can be their differing philosophies towards just how you play games.
Yeah.
As opposed to that heightened life or death or fate of the world attached to game mechanics.
Sam, how did you kind of get into comic books and then comic book art?
Oh, wow. So I actually started really seriously drawing comic books in 2015, 2016. So not a super long time ago. The first book I worked on was one published by Vault, Songs for Dead, which is like a really fun fantasy book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been drawing forever, but I have never been like an avid comic book reader until really, really recently. Like in terms of like influences and stuff, like I've always really loved anime and manga, and like I have an affinity for like a good ensemble cast in either a game or a book or novel. So this really fits into what I like about video games in general, which is like the story is secondary. I want to see how these characters relate to each other and tell jokes with each other and like have fun with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's fun about the script, it gave you it seemed like a lot of different environments to play around with all the characters in, because instead of being on just one map all the time, like a lot of games, it's on multiple maps, and so you get to have them explore the environment differently in every single scene.
Yeah, that was super fun. You said something about the art being really vibrant, which I appreciate, because I've definitely sent in pitches to publishers where it's like, we need to tone this down. And no one said that to me on this project. So
I promise you, I will never ask you to tone art down on any project.
My favorite artists right now are the most kinetic artists. Like I was talking to some friends like about what is his name off the top of my head? He's doing Batman right now, but it's the most kinetic and like fast-paced Batman book that I've read in a long time, because he's just drawing them as anime characters. And like that's what I love about comics, is unless it's like a comic that's supposed to be slow down and be serious, like if this is about video games, this is about people playing first-person shooters, this is about having a good time.
And that was all part of like, we want to have that sports narrative, but if it's a whole VR shooter game, then great, we can have lasers and explosions and outer space and crazy locations, and we don't need to explain any of it. It's just a video game. Let's skip right to all the coolest stuff.
And so it definitely gives your art, Sam, like the space to be kinetic and frantic, and just kind of you feel the pace of it all, and it's fun. It's great. That's what like I was just having a good time reading the whole thing.
Thank you. Yeah. I worked on other comics where like I wanted to stick to like a really rigid like grid structure just for like storytelling purposes. For this one, it was like threw that all out the window. Like if something could be colorful, it was like taken from 10 to 11. Like there is no kind of it's like a maximalism with like color and movement and like effects and things, which I think is really fun and I enjoy doing a lot, and hopefully works well in this context.
Sam, you say you haven't read a bunch of comics until recently. Do you have a favorite book that you enjoy and recommend to people?
I think so. This is going to be a weird recommendation based off of my artwork in Renegade Rule in specific, but one comic that I really love deeply is Stages of Rot by who's the artist? Liana Sturt. It's a gorgeous comic, like the colors, and it's slow paced, it's very thoughtful, it's like the opposite of Renegade Rule, but it's one of my favorite comics like recently. So take what you will from that. It's a beautiful comic. The other one I've been reading really recently is a manga, Golden Kamuy, which is
I love that one.
My friend keeps trying to get me to get into that. I need to.
It's buck wild. Like everything about it is just off the wall. I can't even describe it to you. You just have to go and read it. Like
it has your humor, Ben. It 100% has your humor.
It sounds like it'll appeal to my JoJo loving soul.
Yeah, there's a few. There's that the thing has a good balance of being very serious and then cracking a joke to break the seriousness. Rachel, where's your comic book origins? Where did you get into comics and kind of follow? I know you said you kind of followed the comic writing with Ben, but like, where did you start wanting to write comics and such?
Yeah, I've always written comics in the past, just kind of for myself, and it being one of those things where you'd be like, I'd love to get this published, but I don't really like it that much, so I'm just gonna keep working on it forever. And I remember there were some times where Ben and I were talking about my comic writing, and he was like, sometimes you just have to scrap the ones that aren't working out and start on something new. And so I took that to heart, Ben. I really like that advice. And so we started working on Renegade Rule, which I think that definitely boosted morale for me and kind of sparked further interest into my writing. And since then, I've written one other. I've written a full graphic novel that I'm just waiting on the art for, and then I have another one that's pitched. So working on Renegade Rule has definitely helped me become a better writer and wanted to make me kind of stand out more in the comic book scene.
And like, when did you get into it though? When did you get into comic books in general?
I mean, you mean like
reading them and like enjoying the medium and such?
Oh, sorry. I just want to.
Oh, no, you're good.
Forever, really. My graphic novel collection is insane. It's overtaken my bookshelf and is now all over my floor. But I mean, I think I started reading comics in like middle school. I was obsessed with Teen Titans for the longest time, and I think it was just because all the girls were hot and I was a blossoming gay. And so, but yeah, I have a lot of comics, and I've pretty much been reading them as long as I can remember.
And do you have any personal favorites that like mean a lot to you, or the ones you recommend to your friends all the time?
Yeah, so my number one favorite, which I know is like, I hate saying that it's my favorite because it's also partially problematic, but I love Rat Queens. That's always the first volume of Rat Queens has always been my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
If you know any of the backstory behind one of the creators of Rat Queens, you'll know that it's super problematic. I'm not going to talk about it, but in terms of the writing, I think it's hilarious. And then I also have 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank. That's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big Lady Killer fan, the Joelle Jones book.
Yeah, and it's Rat Queens is problematic with the original artist, yeah. But those 3 are like some of the most iconic and kind of breakout of the indie scene after like a while of it being dominated by like the same few names. So it's really really cool that those are the 3 that are some of your favorites. About Renegade Rule, when it comes to writing the relationships that all the characters have, there are moments where I could see myself in the characters, and I felt seen, but I also felt targeted as I was reading it. How did you guys go about writing the relationships between all the characters and to the other teammates of the opposite teams?
I think we kind of came up with some basic character traits. Like we knew kind of, it's like, okay, we have the angry one, like the super like lovely one, like the sweet nervous one, like the captain, like the leader. And we kind of, went into it just those really, and Rachel, cut in if this isn't sounding right or anything you want to add. So we kind of end with those like really just basic character traits. And then they kind of just came to life in the writing process. Like, I feel like just the more we wrote them, the more clear we sounded, the more real they became. And then it was just kind of going where felt natural and felt funniest.
Yeah, we wanted them to be as close as best friends could seem, without it seeming like we were trying too hard.
Yeah.
And I think we did a pretty good job with that. They really are characters that are completely relatable.
The goal was definitely to, and I'm so glad you had the experience you had reading it and getting to know the characters, because we definitely went into it with the goal of trying to make the reader feel like they were hanging out with a group of best friends who'd all known each other for years.
Yeah, and it really does feel like that. It really does feel like there's a whole life with these characters before the book. And I feel like that is rarer and rarer to get, because either a lot of books are solo books. There's not a lot of team indie comics anymore. And if they are teams, they become teams in those first few arcs. They don't just start off as teams. So having this cast together right away, it felt tight and felt like these people have been friends for years at that point.
Yeah, we definitely had our fun kind of coming up with all their backstory and knowing all the details of how they first got together and became a team, even if none of that actually made its way into the book.
Yeah. And Sam, with the design of the characters, did they give you kind of an outline of like what they wanted to see, or did you have free reign of doing whatever you wanted with the designs?
I think I think Ben and Rachel gave me like a couple of sentences about each character, like their traits, like what their role was in the game, and like sort of how they looked. I can't remember. It's been so long, but definitely like a kind of a little blurb about them, and just went from there. What was interesting was the first chapter of this book was there was like a year in between writing the last three chapters, so it was interesting trying to match how I drew a year ago to what I was drawing now. And because like art styles evolve and like keeping the characters consistent and stuff was a challenge, but it was still like it was a fun challenge.
And were you guys writing the rest of the chapters through the entire year, or did you take a break and then come back to them? Because also writing evolves too. So I'm curious if you guys rewrote stuff or just like, okay, we got to get back into the groove of this, what we already done.
We kind of started writing issue 2 like slowly, like we were working on it here and there, like kind of firming up the outline and plot beats. But it really wasn't until the book kind of got picked up by Dark Horse that we really kind of kicked back into high gear, and we're just kind of on a race to write the rest of the graphic novel. And then like we kind of didn't stop from there.
And I'm assuming it's probably up to Dark Horse if a sequel probably comes about, but would you guys want to do a sequel to this? Because it leaves it very open to exploring these relationships and kind of growing out the world a bit more.
Absolutely. We definitely already have a whole bunch of ideas about what volume 2 would look like. And for readers of the book, I think can probably tell which particular kind of relationship and characters we kind of left open-ended that we would like to focus on in a volume 2.
And Sam, would you be 100% down to go draw another volume of this?
Oh, definitely. They shared a few ideas they have for volume 2, and just like clapping like excitedly with everything they were writing to me. So definitely on board for it.
I think one place we'd go with volume 2 if when we were really developing Renegade Rule and coming up with it all, Overwatch, I'd say, was kind of our inspiration. Those teams of 4 with super elaborate character classes on totally out there wild levels. So I think if we got to do a volume 2, we'd really need to take stock of how the shooter genre has evolved and what kind of games the medium is really about right now, and really kind of let that be a reference for how to make volume 2 bigger and badder.
So what I'm hearing is 1 versus 100 type combat with a bunch of characters on the page. So Sam has a breakdown drawing every single character in a giant army.
The full George Perez.
Look, Ben brought up like cars at one point. I'm like, okay, I'm ready, but I also need to prepare myself mentally for this.
It's the infamous artists have a hard time drawing horses fiasco again.
Well, we hold on. We never ask you to draw a horse. We have some lines we won't cross. We're not monsters, Sam.
I know. I inflict drawing horses on myself. It's my own problem.
Do all of you guys have your own favorite character from the graphic novel too?
Yes.
Yes, actually, that was fine. We do tend to each have our own. My favorite is Jesse.
Jesse's great. Jesse's the one that felt, other than my name being Jesse, Jesse felt the most like me in a lot of ways too.
My favorite was Kahn. It's Tanya. I feel like I relate to her the most, being that I've always been I know that Ben talked about Overwatch. I've always been a crazy big Overwatch fan, and I'm one of those geeks who's like into the lore, or what little lore there is, and just in the fandom in general and all the shipping wars and everything. And that's very much what, like, the essence of Tanya. She's really into the lore of Renegade Rule, the actual game. And she there's a couple lines about her writing fan fiction about it, and I'm not saying I write fan fiction, I'm not judging anyone who does, but I feel like
if you can find it on AO3, we won't tell.
Exactly. Oh my god, Renegade Rule AO3 fix. Someone write one.
I have a lot of friends that I shared, like, hey, I'm talking to these people about this book, and I showed the cover, and all of them, I'm like, oh, this is the book. Like, people who weren't even in the comics, like, oh, I'm gonna find a way to get this book. So I feel like you guys might have some fan fiction coming out of this.
That would be amazing. We would read
and cosplay.
We would read every fanfic.
Oh yeah, I will print them out and love them all.
Sam, do you have a favorite character?
Yeah, my favorite character is Sasha. She is who I would like to be in real life, just kind of mean and snarky. She's great. She was really fun to draw. She has some of like the best kind of deadpan expressions in the book. I love her.
Getting to do Sasha lines was so much fun. It's always fun doing a character cooler and wittier than I am in real life.
It feels like at times writing characters like Sasha, or in a few of the other characters in the book, is kind of like remembering a comeback that you wanted to have in an argument. And you're like, no, I'm just gonna put this in the book instead.
Yeah.
And since the book is about video games, what are the video games you guys are playing? If you guys play anything right now?
Yes. So I feel like I'm always playing Pokemon. I'm always doing something in Pokemon, but the big thing I'm dedicating most of my video game time to right now is I'm diving deep into nostalgia, and I'm replaying the original Halo trilogy.
Oh, okay.
I just bought Pikmin 3 for my Switch, which I know is kind of older because it was on the Wii U, but it's a gorgeous game.
What's your favorite Pikmin? Which color?
Ooh, it's a good question. I like the yellow guys. They're so derpy. I mean, they're all derpy though.
Next episode, rating the Pikmin on a scale from least to most derpy.
Yeah.
and then the one after that is rating the Pikmin, like which one's the hottest, which one's the nottest.
Ooh.
Sam, are you playing any video games right now, or are you just neck deep in doing more comic work?
I'm always neck deep in comic work, but the video game I picked up recently was actually Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which is a game I played as like a teen and decided to pick up again. Also eyeing Bravely Default 2 as like a reward for finishing this book.
So I don't know about Bravely Default 2, if only because I played the first Bravely Default, and I feel like I got into like an angry relationship with that game eventually.
It sounds like you need to get an angry relationship part 2 though, with Bravely Default 2.
I need to know, is Bravely Default 2 gonna have like an amazing 20 hours and then just another 20 hours of you just repeating the same shit over and over and over again with no end in sight and no rewards for it?
That's a lot of JRPGs, so probably.
That's how I felt recently. I just finished up Ghost of Tsushima and like completed everything. I was like, oh man, this third act is just the first 2 acts, isn't it?
I will say, spoilers for, if it's okay to spoil the first Bravely Default, it does have a moment I absolutely loved where at the end it's like, oh, the main character was being controlled by a Celestial this whole time. And I decided like, oh, that's some really big cosmic bullshit to throw in at the final boss. And then it turned on the DS camera and was showing myself back at me. And I'm like, wait a minute, am I the Celestial? I've been controlling him the whole. Oh my god, I'm the Celestial. Okay, Bravely Default credit. I like that. That's good.
I don't remember which video game it is, but the disc would say turn around to see something really ugly, and you turn around, it's just your reflection. And so it's that kind of thing again.
Oh.
So some Q&A to wrap up the show is the first question I have is, I know that Sam said before we recorded that a lot of the drawing was done during the pandemic, but how much of the writing was done during the pandemic?
That was
all before, right?
Yeah, entirely beforehand. Yeah.
So when it came to Sam, you doing the art, and then Ben and Rachel getting the art back during the pandemic, how was that like giving notes and kind of finishing up a book during all of this? Was it a bit easier than expected, or was it a bit chaotic at times?
Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I mean, I was going to say, at least I feel like from our end, this is one of the absolutely smoothest projects I've ever been involved in.
Yeah, I mean, it was smooth, like, through the pandemic, like, my job doesn't change, so it was business as usual for me. Yeah.
Like, I feel like most projects, there's usually one time where I'm giving myself a stress headache over something in the production pipeline, and I don't think that happened once during Renegade Rule.
Yeah.
And for Rachel and Sam, because I asked Ben this before, is there any like mainstream comics you guys would like to have a crack at? Anything that's already been established, or somebody like collaborative you would want to work with?
Oh, definitely. I am a not so secret, really big Legend of Korra fan. And if I ever got to write a Legend of Korra comic, it would be like the epitome of my life. Not really. That was dramatic, but you know what I mean. That's where I aim to be one day.
I mean, they have that Avatar studio now. Like,
that's true.
There's a good opportunity coming for that.
Yeah.
And Sam, how about you?
I can't think of anything. I'm so sorry. Questions.
Oh, you're good.
Think of like a name or like book titles. I draw a blank. I can say I would if I had the opportunity to like write or draw an adaptation of a novel. It would be Stardust by Neil Gaiman.
Ooh, okay, yeah. And again, like Gaiman does a lot of those. Like, hey, you can adapt my stuff. He just announced another one like yesterday. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, like that would be great. It's one of his better books, and so I would love to see that. And so other than Renegade Rule, do you guys feel like you would want to work on another project together that's not about video games, but something else?
Like all together?
Yeah, like as another trio project.
Yeah, I think it could definitely be fun. Yeah.
With you guys.
Sam and I might be cooking something up.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I always love the teasers that like you're like, yeah, of course. Maybe we've already done it. and then a couple months later I read about it and I was like, that's what it was. Okay, I'm excited now. So anything else about the comic other than it's which is crazy, it's coming from Dark Horse too. Like like last time me and Ben talked, we're like, oh, it'd be great to have like big publisher stuff, and then now you have Dark Horse publishing 2 of your books, and I feel like this is going to be a huge book for everybody that no one sees coming, and I hope I'm right about this because I feel like it should be.
Well, thank you. We really hope people find it and people enjoy it.
But is there anything else about the book you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
I want to know, after everyone reads it, what their favorite ship is, because I feel like as half the writing team, I am very invested in all of the ships, and I need to know everyone else's feelings about them.
I want people to make their own Renegade Rule sonas where they create their own classes for the game.
Someone needs to create one of those pick crew generators that they're just Renegade Rule drawings.
Yeah,
that would be great. I want everyone making their own. I like that Renegade Sona.
And Sam, is there anything else you want added about the book?
I mean, yeah, I hope you like this book. Like, I think it's honestly one of the most fun things I've ever read. So I just hope everyone likes it and enjoys the art, enjoys the stories. And like Rachel said, I definitely want to see who people ship, because even though it's not written in, it's drawn in for sure. Every panel, you'll see it.
You can see where the romance lies with everybody, and it's very cute. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Where can everybody find you on social medias, and any other projects you want to plug too? Plug them, because this is the place for it.
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter at Ben the Kahn, and I co-host Progressively Horrified, a podcast looking at horror movies through a progressive lens. New episodes come out every Friday, and in terms of comics work, Renegade Rule is out in comic stores everywhere, May 26th. And then this September, from me and Giorgio Brooks, is the comic book tie-in to Ubisoft's Immortals: Phoenix Rising.
Nice. I'm working on things at the moment, but you can find me on Twitter at Flirty Mango.
And you can find me on Twitter at Sam Beck Draws. And later this year in the fall, Wonderbound is an imprint adult, and they're going to be releasing my comic first, which is an all ages fantasy graphic novel about friends and found family and weird magic.
And you can find this podcast on Twitter at Comics Matter Pod, Facebook at facebook.com/comicbooksmatter. You can email me at comicbooksmatter@gmail.com. And if you have any questions for guests, want to be a guest in the future yourself, or have a story about how comic books matter to you and you want it right on the air, please reach me at any of those. Tell a friend about the show if you like it, and leave a review. And lastly, the theme is Join the Restaurant by David Szesztay. The logo is done by my friend Steven. And remember, everyone, Captain America punched Nazis.